Hey everyone, welcome. So 68 years ago, back in 1952, these two guys, Dr. Hammond and Horn, they put together what was called at the time the cohort study. And the cohort study was the most robust academic and reputable study of the time, and it was heavily publicized. What did they talk about? They said that smoking's bad for you. That smoking, this thing that was extremely ingrained in our cultural fabric, was going to diminish your quality of life, and it was going to diminish your length of life. And they were successful. How do I know they were successful? Because it's 70 years later, and none of you all are smoking right now. And if I was standing here in this ballroom back in 1952, a lot of you would be. These guys were successful. But you know, whenever one thing leaves from our cultural fabric, another thing comes to fill that void. And back in the 1950s, there were two pieces of technology that became ingrained in our cultural fabric. And those pieces of technology were televisions and cars. And they're awesome. Don't let me tell you that cars and TVs aren't great. I love my car, I love my TV. However, these two things that made it a lot easier for us to go places without having to actually move, or be entertained without having to actually move, these things over the past 70 years have had an unanticipated consequence. And that consequence is that the average adult now carries about 2 extra bowling balls of weight on our bodies. Actually, it's so bad that as of today, 2020, about 40% of American adults are obese. That means 40% of American adults are suffering. Because if you look at this list, that's suffering. I don't know what leaky gut is, but I don't want it. This is suffering, and this was an unanticipated consequence of these wonderful technologies. So I thought about that, and I wondered, what's the thing today? What's the new thing? What's the thing that's super convenient and awesome, and I love it, but it might have some unanticipated consequence? And it got me thinking about dental conferences. Because see, when I go to ADA or I go to Chicago midwinter, I see a couple dentists who are in their 70s and 80s, and they look kind of like this guy. Instead of their heads being on top of their chest, their head, or on top of their shoulders, their heads look like they're coming out of their chest. Let me demonstrate. Like this, right? And I'm actually pretty good friends with one guy. He practiced about 30 miles south of where I practice, and him and I get along, and he looks like this, and he's cool about it. But he said, you know what, listen, Gupta, the worst thing about this is that I can't put on shirts. And I was like, what do you mean you can't put on shirts? He's like, no, I can't lift my hands above my head and, do the whole shirt putting on thing. He's like, now I put on shirts I have to put my sleeves through, and it's a pain in the butt. He said, so watch out for that, because when you get older, you're gonna have that thing happen to you too. And I probably will, right? Because dentistry is kind of a bad posture profession. It's funny, I took this video back when I was doing a class about certain clinical techniques that are supposed to make our posture better. So in this video, I'm actually overacting my great posture. And even there, it's not that good, right? My head's kind of pitched forward. That's okay. I don't feel sorry for myself, and I don't feel sorry for this guy, because both of us, we got to be dentists for our careers. And being dentists is awesome. We get to be productive, and we get to be active, we get to be robust, and it's okay. When we're in our 70s, maybe we'll have a bad posture. But see, there's a problem here, because if you look at disability overall, not just dentists, we're talking about all disability, all people with insurance. Between 1990 and 2015, posture-based disability has increased 54%. That means disability companies are getting about 54% more claims because of posture-based disability. Worse than that is that individuals who have to actually become retired early because of disability, posture-based, has gone from age 57 to age 53. So what's going on? What happened? Is everybody in the world just becoming dentists now? Are we becoming dentists early? No. I know what's happening. I know this because I saw this kid last Thanksgiving in this position for over an hour and a half. Now, I started my profession of crappy posture back when I was in my 20s. This kid is starting his profession much earlier. And I think about that when I walk through airports and I see people with their devices, these devices that are so convenient and so awesome. They're entertaining and they connect us, and I don't have to like print out a map or anything. Like, these devices are so awesome. But what are they doing to us long term? And I think it's pretty bad. See, our heads weigh about a bowling ball. Our heads are about 10, 11 pounds, okay? And the amount of torque that we put on the muscles in the back of our neck when we lean our heads forward is tremendous. And we're doing it on a regular basis. We're doing it on such a regular basis that the chances of us having a long-term disability because of posture is much higher than it was before our devices became ubiquitous. All right. So you're probably like, thanks, Gupta. Thanks for making me feel crappy. And like, in a couple of years, I won't be able to put on shirts. You suck. Well, no, let me tell you. There's a couple things you can do about this, all right? And none of these things require that you like pay me anything or like join my membership or seek help from a professional. No, these are pretty easy, all right? Number one is, for those of you who flew in, when you get back in that airplane, or if you get in your Uber today or whatever, and you have a headrest, I want you to push your head straight back into that headrest, okay? I call it the double chin. Because see, you're doing it wrong if you don't give yourself a double chin. You have to push your head straight back into the headrest and strengthen the muscles in the back of your neck. And the added bonus is if you do this while you're in the airplane, you're gonna look so hot. Number two, the phone belly. I've noticed that before I went on this journey, I would like looking at my phone like this. This is how I look at my phone. Pretty normal, right? Instead, make a commitment to yourself that if you're going to look at your phone, maybe put one hand to support the other arm and look at the phone straight in front of you. Yes, you're gonna look like a freak because nobody does this, but it's gonna support your back. And number three is when you get back to the hotel room tonight, lay on the floor and don't do a push-up, but do a press-up. And that's where your hips stay on the floor and you allow the muscles of your back to stretch in the position where they would like to be. And the fourth piece of advice, and probably the one that I found most meaningful as I started this journey about a year ago, is when it was time, when I got back from work and my phone was on the countertop or the dining table or something like that, it was very easy to access. And I made a rule in my house that the phone was no longer going to be easy to access. If we were downstairs, it had to be upstairs, or it had to be in my backpack, or it had to be somewhere where it wasn't easy to see. And what we ended up finding was not having devices easy to access in our house, was all of a sudden we started doing stuff that we hadn't done before. All of a sudden, boredom was being replaced with things that we didn't devote a device towards. And not only did this help strengthen my posture and those muscles in the back of my neck, I actually created some memories. And I encourage everybody else to try that as well. You know, it is 2020, and it took Hammond and Horn, a scientific study, and 70 years for people to look around and be like, you know what? I think when I suck in burned stuff, it might be bad for me. I think all of you should think about, will it take a scientific study, tons of publicity, and 70 years for us to look at the posture we have with these devices, the amount of time we spend on these devices, and think, no, actually, I think we could save ourselves those 70 years and maybe rethink and retool our relationship with these devices. I think we can. And I can tell just by looking the way you all are sitting, you've already started. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.